In this video, we're going to go ahead and create a backup of our Ubuntu installation. Now, um, you could you can back up a virtualized computer very easily. You can just copy and paste a new version of the virtual hard drive at any time. It's just a file, so you could just make a copy of the file and then move it somewhere that's safe. And you could do that many times over. Um, with storage as cheap as it is, a terabyte is now very inexpensive, so it is really possible that you could do that. Now, there are a lot of different ways to back things up. Um, we are going to use a method here today which is supposed to introduce you to a few different concepts that are all useful when working with operating systems. And in the process, we're going to create a backup using a program called clonezilla. Clonezilla is great because of the fact that it can run as a live CD, it can clone any operating system, and it can send those, it can back up over a network as well, which means that you don't need to be backing up to the same computer. You could send it across the internet, you could send it on your own network. It's also scriptable, which means that you could write a Windows script or a piece of programming that would run the program for you. In our case, we're just going to create a simple backup with using clonezilla. Okay, so I've left a couple of error messages in here so that we can kind of look at a couple of the issues you might run into. So basically, we opened up VirtualBox. This will be on your flash drive, hopefully. So we're going to go ahead and go into settings. Okay, and we're going to cause our first error to occur here. So we go into settings, we go to storage. Now you will have under your SATA controller, you'll have a hard disk called Ubuntu. Okay, and now what I've done is I've removed that earlier. Now let's say I go back and try to choose that same file again. So here's my Ubuntu VDI under my flash drive. I click open, and it gives me this error. It says that it cannot register the hard disk, and it says that when you go into details, it gives us this invalid message, right? So we click OK. Now what's happened here is that you can't choose a hard disk twice unless you go ahead and remove it out of this virtual media manager. So you go to File, Virtual Media Manager. Now notice that I deleted these files earlier. So what we need to do is just take them out of here into this virtual media manager. If you're not using something, you have to go into this virtual media manager and just click, highlight it, click remove, and then click remove again. Then click OK. And then we can go back into Ubuntu and we can attach that hard drive to our computer very easily now. The error message won't come back up. Okay, so we go ahead and click on SATA controller. We can choose add hard disk here or add a hard disk at the bottom. Click add hard disk. We have an existing hard disk, so we're going to choose hard disk. We double click ubuntu.vdi. Okay, so this is what your interface, if you're doing this the first time, this is what your interface will look like if you follow the other tutorials. Okay, so we got Ubuntu VDI. Okay, now what we need to do, we're going to back up. This is the disk we're going to back up. So what we need to do is we need to have a disk where we're actually going to save the image to. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to go ahead and add a hard disk to our computer, and we're going to use that virtual hard disk or virtual disk drive to back up our image to. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click again. We're going to go add new hard drive. Okay, and this time we're going to click create new disk. Now this is just as if I'd gone to the store, purchased a physical hard drive, and now I'm installing it in my computer. Okay, but we get to make some choices, just like we would when we purchase a hard drive at a store. So I'm going to choose fixed size storage. A lot of people say dynamically expanding storage works. I haven't found that it's as stable, so you might want to experiment with that. Fixed size storage. We're going to set the exact same size as our other hard drive. Now we're not cloning a hard drive here. We could clone our hard drive to a new hard drive, but there would be no purpose in that because we could just copy and paste the hard drive file, the virtual hard drive file. In this case, we're actually going to make a backup, which is just a set of files which will sit on our new virtual hard drive. So we can make this hard drive any size, even less than 5 gigabytes, because the image will be compressed a bit, which means that it'll take up a little bit less space than the original the original 5 gigabytes of the first disk. One of the good things about clonezilla is it actually only backs up the data that's being used, not the entire size of the disk itself. So, for example, if you're only storing 1 gigabyte on a hard drive that is 20 gigabytes large, clonezilla would only make a backup of that 1 gigabyte, not the 20 gigabyte size of the hard drive. Okay, so we're going to call this Ubuntu backup. Okay, underscore. So let's take the underscore out. And of course, if I were to just do this now, it would be saving it onto our flash drive, and we don't want to do that. So what you're going to need to do, unless you have a large flash drive, you're going to need to store this on your computer. So in my case, we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to put it on my desktop. In your situation, you might want to put it somewhere else. So, so in my case, I'm just going to put it on my desktop. I'm going to go ahead and click Next, and now we're going to click Finish. So now Ubuntu is now, the VirtualBox is now creating that virtual hard drive file. So it's going to sit here and work for a few minutes. Okay, so VirtualBox is almost finished here. Creating my virtual hard disk. Okay, so remember, we're going to this is the virtual hard disk we're going to use to store our backups. Okay, so there it's been created and attached to our computer. If we go back onto our desktop back here, you can see that if I had my desktop set to automatically organize my icons, so I unclick auto arrange there. Okay, so you can see that we have Ubuntu backup.bdi. I have my computer set, of course, to display the file extensions. Okay, so that's why you see .bdi. Your computer may not be set that way. You can change that if it doesn't. Okay, so we have our 2 hard drives. Now we need to go ahead and actually format this new hard drive. So imagine we purchased a hard drive from the store, okay, and it's not formatted with any kind of file system yet. Okay, so it's just a blank hard drive, and we need to format that hard drive before we can store any information on it. Okay, so to do that, we're going to use a program called gparted. Okay, and the gparted that we're going to use is just what's called a live CD. So if we had the physical CD, we would load that in our CD drive, and we would boot to the CD, and it would just come up, not in our Windows operating system or Linux operating system, but it would just come up as its own operating system. It's Debian Linux with gparted installed on it. Okay, now in VirtualBox, instead of putting a physical CD in the drive, what we're going to do is we are just going to go ahead and add a CD, right? Okay, so we're going to choose disk. Okay, we're going to choose gparted ISO. Okay, so now we have, it's just as if we put the gparted live CD right into our computer here. Okay, so it's not going to boot. When we boot up our computer, it's not going to boot to Ubuntu, right? It's going to boot into this gparted CD drive, or CD. So how does the computer know what to boot into, right? Well, it's a very easy setting. Okay, so we go up to System, and we go to System, okay, and we go to Boot Order. You'll notice that I've set my boot order to go from CD-ROM to hard disk. Okay, now if I wanted to always boot to hard disk, no matter what was in the CD-ROM, I would just move the hard disk up in the order. Okay, but this order says to the computer, look at the CD drive. If there's something in it and it's bootable, boot to that. Oh, if there's nothing in it, then go on to the hard disk. If something's bootable, if there's a bootable hard drive that's been installed, boot to that. And then floppy and network are not checked, so the computer would end that process at hard disk. Okay, so we're ready to go ahead and boot into gparted. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And we're going to start up Ubuntu. Ubuntu being the name of the computer. In this case, we're going to start the computer named Ubuntu, and it's going to boot into the gparted live CD. Okay, so it comes up very quickly. We're just going to go ahead and hit Enter. Okay, in this process of booting up, because remember your VirtualBox only has 1 gig or less of RAM probably, so it might take a while to run. Okay, so we're just going to let the video run. And usually I'll pause the video when something like this is going on, but it's interesting. If yours ends up being different than what you see on my screen, then it's sometimes kind of helpful if you're trying to troubleshoot to have the video actually showing you what's going on the screen. Okay, so it's continuing to boot up here. Okay, it's continuing to boot. You notice that it was Debian Linux, and it's interesting that Ubuntu and Xubuntu also based on Debian. So Debian is one of the basic types of Linux. Okay, so the Gpart is now loaded, so we're going to go hit enter for select key map. Okay, we're just going to accept most of the defaults here. Okay, now the process that you just saw me there, I think I made an odd keystroke, so we'll see if anything goes wrong. But you may not have you don't select anything on those first two screens, just accept the default values and enter. In this case, you see the 33 in brackets here. Notice it says 33 US English. That's exactly what we want. So whenever you see something like that in brackets after a question, that's your default answer. And if you just hit enter, that's what the program will go with. So we go ahead and hit enter. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and choose 0. 0 is default here. Okay, so basically Gparted is going to go ahead and go into a GUI interface or a graphical user interface now. Okay, so here we are. Now what we're going to do, it's fully booted, so this is what the Gparted live CD looks like. We're going to go ahead and double click on Gparted. It'll actually launch on its own, I think. I always double click a little too early here. Okay, so Gparted comes up, and so remember we have two hard drives, right? So when gparted comes up, it shows us our first hard drive. You'll see what I did. I launched two here. So it shows us our first hard drive. Now notice that it shows there's used space. So we know that this is the one that we were going to back up because our other one is empty, right? So we're going to go ahead and switch to the other hard drive because all we're doing in gparted here is we're just formatting our new hard drive, our Ubuntu backup hard drive. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is go to device. We're going to go create partition table. This gives a warning and just click apply. So that was device, create partition table. Okay, next we're going to highlight this unallocated partition and we're going to go ahead and format it. Okay, so I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to click new. Okay, it's going to create a new partition. All right. We're going to choose the ext4 file system. Okay, just because it goes well with Ubuntu. We're going to be looking at this file system later in Ubuntu. So we're going to go ahead and click add. Okay, we can leave everything else as the default. It's just going to use the whole unallocated space. Click add. And then what gparted does is it will stack up commands down at the bottom of the window here. And if we want to execute those commands, we go ahead and click apply, and it will just execute them in order as it can. So we're going to go ahead and click apply. And we do want to do it, so we click apply again. Okay, so all operations successfully completed. So we're going to go ahead and click close. And notice now we have a new partition, and it has the file system, the ext4 file system. And we're going to go ahead and shut down our machine. So there's a couple of different ways to do it. As we talked about before, probably the safest way is just to click exit here on the desktop. Okay, we're going to choose shutdown and OK. Okay, enter. Okay, so now we have Ubuntu, we have our two hard disks, and we have our, we've formatted our new hard disk using gparted. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to actually perform the backup. So we're going to go into settings. This is just the same thing as taking out the gparted live CD out of the CD drive and putting back in the clonezilla CD into the CD drive. So we're going to go click on storage. We're going to click on gparted ISO, and this disk over here, we're going to click on that. We're going to choose a different virtual CD, DVD. Okay, so we choose the clonezilla ISO off our flash drive or wherever it's stored. Click OK. And then we're going to go ahead and start up the computer again, and now it's going to boot into clonezilla. Okay, now I'm going to make a couple changes in clonezilla, and the first thing we're going to choose here is the mode of clonezilla. Now, I'm going to choose a different mode, and the only reason I'm doing this is so that it keeps displaying for the video. So I'm actually going to go into other modes and then go down to save graphic settings and hit enter. And that way you'll be able to see everything that happens on the screen in clonezilla. So I click enter and clonezilla starts to start up. And we're going to go ahead and pause the video because it's quite a lengthy startup process. Okay, so we have clonezilla has started up here. Okay, so we hit enter, don't touch ski map. Okay, so clonezilla has come back here with start clonezilla, so we hit enter. Okay, now this is where we start to make selections. So we have device to image and device to device. So device to device would just be if you're cloning one hard drive to another. Device to image means it's going to store it as a series of files. Okay, so we want device to image. Okay, now these are a number of selections. So local dev, that's just a local hard drive. That's what we're going to use because we have a virtual computer with 2 hard drives attached. It's a local hard drive. An SSH server, that's a secure connection over the internet or network. So SSH server. Samba server, that's if you have a local area network. So if you're in a computer lab and you want to back up to another computer in that computer lab, you can use the Samba server. I'm not sure if it works across subnets, which means that if it's not in your room, you might want to check it before you try to do it. Okay, so let's go ahead and choose local dev. Okay, and enter to continue. So clonezilla is a really versatile program, which means that you can do a lot of different stuff with it. So we're just using it for one particular type of situation. But it has a lot of options in it. So it's going to go ahead and start up here. Okay, so now we're going to choose the hard disk where we're going to save our image to. Okay, so remember that you were backing up. I didn't tell you this when we did gparted. You should have looked in gparted. Remember when gparted came up, it was SDA1A that came up. Okay, as the first hard disk, and you needed to examine that to know that that's the hard disk that contains your information you want to back up. SDB was the hard disk that is the blank hard disk that we added. Okay, so when we're choosing in clonezilla here, if you read, now we need to mount a device, as it gives you a home part image, so that we can read or save the image in that mount point, right? So all you need to know in this case is that here you're going to choose the empty hard drive, in this case SDB1, and hit enter. Okay, now we didn't make any directories on that blank hard drive. We just put in a new file system. So it tells us top directory and local device. So we hit enter. It gives us a list of directories inside there. That's fine. We hit enter. Okay. Now, in this case, it would be great if we could use beginner mode, but we need to go ahead and click expert mode because we need to make sure that we check one option inside expert mode to make sure that this goes well. So we click the down arrow and click enter for expert mode, and we're going to choose save disk, and then save part would be if you just wanted to just do a partition on the disk, but we want to save the whole local disk. So we want to do save disk. We hit enter. Okay, now this is the name that we want to give to our backup. It automatically chooses the date. So in this case, we're on 2011, August 30th. I click enter. So one of the ways that you would use clonezilla is, say that you're configuring a new computer, okay? And let's say you have a lot of different types of computers to configure. Okay, so one thing you could do is create a virtual computer for each of those types of different computer systems. They might have different software, might have different settings, and you can create that as a virtual computer, and then use clonezilla to create a backup of that virtual computer. Okay, so you create a backup of that computer, and then you can put that backup image back onto a physical computer. So it's a good way to transfer computers between virtual and real computers if you need to do that. Okay, so it comes back, and now we're going to choose the source for the backup. In this case, it's SDA, right? Because that was our original hard drive. So we can click enter. Okay, we're just going to leave this as the default. Okay, the top one. Okay, now here's where we make our selection. So I'm going to use the arrow key. I'm going to arrow down. And I'm going to use the space key to mark this option. Okay, so NTFS-OK. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the wrong one. So I uncheck it with the space bar. Okay, we need to do FSK-SRC-part. So check and repair source file system before saving. Okay, this is just a good safeguard. Okay, this is going to make sure that if there are any errors in the source file system, that will go ahead and repair those errors prior to creating our backup. So I have all my my options set. Now, if I wanted to, I can go ahead and say I wanted to cancel at this point. I could click the tab key, and then we can tab between options here. Okay, so in my case, I want OK, so I click Enter when OK is highlighted. OK was a default, so I can just click Enter, and it goes to OK automatically. Okay, so now we want to choose a compression type. Just leave this as default for gzip. Okay, this is the size. So the partition file is going to be split into multiple files, if that makes any sense. So it's one giant backup of a hard drive, but it's going to be split into different files. And this is the size of that file, so just want to go ahead and make this the default as well. Okay, so now it asks us, do we want to check the saved image after it's done? We do, so we just leave it default, click Enter. Okay, we're going to leave this default also. This is the action we're going to perform when client finishes cloning. Okay, so we're going to leave it as true. Now here's a great feature of clonezilla. Notice in green down here that it actually saves the command. So if you wanted to run this, everything that we've chosen on the command line, like say you wanted to do the same backup on a daily basis, you could just copy, and it's also saved within a file in temp ocs -- you see the file name in green here. You could go in there, and that would give you all the parameters that you could run it as. So that's one great thing. So you would just go through this one time, and then you could automate this process if you needed to. In our case, we're just going to go ahead and click Enter. Okay, and makes us really sure. Do you want to continue? Yes, we do. I typed Y and hit Enter. Okay, so now it's running its file system check. Okay, and notice it is actually recovering something. So this backup would have failed if we had not told it to check and fix any errors on the source file system. Okay, so here it is. It's gonna start working here. Okay, so this is the initial process. Notice it's going very quickly. The actual backup will not be this quick. Okay, so notice that now it's going to start backing up. Okay, so you notice the complete right here. You can see the rate at which it's backing up. And this is on a local computer. So one thing about clonezilla is it is not the fastest process. You can make it go a little bit faster here and there, but it is not an instantaneous process by any means. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video and let it run. Okay, so now at this point the actual creation of the image is finished, and now it is checking the partitions. That initial count that we had is finished, and now it's checking the partition. Okay, so at this point the clonezilla has run its course. It is backed up the computer, and it's gone ahead and basically said hit enter to continue. Okay, so we want to go ahead and power off, so we click 0. Okay, you go ahead and enter, and it's shut down. Okay, so at this point, what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and check out our backup. So let's go ahead and click Settings. Remember that we have to do the equivalent of taking the clonezilla CD out of the CD drive, or changing the boot order to boot from the hard disk first. That's kind of your choice. So we're going to storage. I'm just going to go ahead and right-click on clonezilla ISO and click Remove Attachment. I'm going to click okay. Alright, so now we have just our two hard drives, so we're going to go ahead and click OK. And we're going to go ahead and start up and go and take a look at our backup. Okay, so Ubuntu started up, and we're going to go ahead and log in. Remember our password is reverse. And click login. Okay, so at this point we're logged in. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and check out our backup files here in Ubuntu. So remember, we have both of our hard disks attached to the operating system. Unfortunately, Ubuntu is not going to show you it right off the bat, so we have to do what's called mount the hard drive. So this is a common thing that you need to do in Linux, especially in, like, for example, Ubuntu is really a minimalist operating system. That's what it's for. So it's created with some fewer applications and whatnot, which might make things a little bit easier, but it takes a lot less system resources to run. Okay, so anyway, so we need to mount our new hard drive, and that means going to the terminal. Okay, so we're going to go to Applications, Accessories, and Terminal. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and type in sudo. Okay. So we do make directory media, and we're going to call it Ubuntu backup. Okay, so we went ahead and did that, and now we're going to go ahead and do we're going to go ahead and mount our hard drive. So we're going to sudo mount. Okay, we tell it what it is. SDB1. Okay, and we have to tell it the mount point, because that's the directory we just made. So we basically said to mount. We told it which hard drive, and then we need to tell it where to mount it. Okay, so it's Ubuntu backup. Okay, so that's all we needed to do there. So now it should be mounted in our file system. Now, the interesting thing about the Linux file system, or Ubuntu file system, we can go ahead and close the terminal at this point, is that you can mount a hard drive at any point in the file system. So if we go into the file system, we basically put our whole second hard drive under this media folder. Now I like to go ahead and go to View, and we're going to view as detailed list. Okay, it's just a lot easier to view things like this. Okay, so we're going to go to media. Okay, and we have Ubuntu backup. Open that up. Okay, so here is the folder where our clonezilla files are located. Okay, so we can go ahead and open that up. And you'll notice that these are all part files. Notice we have the size here. Okay. So in all, it only took up 660 megabytes, which is great. So basically, we backed up our 5 gigabyte hard drive, which contained a good gigabyte and a half of information, and now it's only taking up 660 megabytes. Okay, so there we have it. Now remember, when you mount a hard disk like this, when you turn the computer back on, it won't remount. It won't automatically mount. You need to do a couple extra things for that. So when you turn on your computer, if you need to look at this again, just remount the hard drive. Okay, go ahead. If you need proof that you did that, this file, screenshot of this folder should serve as proof for your instructor. So good luck, and hopefully your backup goes well.